So we're talking about mistakes that leaders make. And the interesting thing about it, leader, is that all of us have blind spots. I believe that mistakes are the down payment for growth. But as leaders, we have to minimize our mistakes. We can't make mistake after mistake after mistake and be successful. What are you thinking about? You gotta be alert. How many thought I retired?
Welcome to Answers That Work with Mike Moore.
Hello, I'm Mike Moore, and this is Answers That Work broadcast. I'm so glad to have you with us today. I'm going to begin a short series on leadership, mistakes that leaders make. And you're going to be blessed. And if you enjoy this content, I want you to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, and it will be a blessing for us and a blessing for you. Listen, we're talking about leadership mistakes. Now, when we talk about leadership, we're talking about leadership in a holistic, comprehensive way. We're talking about leadership in the home. We're talking about leadership at work, leadership in business, leadership in ministry, leadership in school. Leadership is critical to success, whether it's individual success or corporate success. So we're talking about mistakes that leaders make. Our theme today will be the danger of pride from a leadership context. And we always like to get on board with our definitions and what we're talking about. We're talking about the mistakes that leaders make. So what are mistakes? Mistakes are errors in judgment, decisions or behavior committed willfully or unintentionally and primarily caused by ignorance, immaturity, or deception. Ignorance, immaturity, or deception. I've been involved in all three of those areas. I've made mistakes in all three of those areas because of ignorance, immaturity, and unfortunately, because of deception. We have an adversary, believers, we who operate in Christendom, we have an adversary, Satan and his demon forces. And Satan uses deception to influence and tempt leaders to make mistakes. I came across a powerful definition years ago of deception. Listen to the definition of deception. Deception is when Satan has successfully canceled out tomorrow's consequences by emphasizing today's delight in your mind. Powerful definition. When Satan has successfully canceled out tomorrow's consequences by emphasizing delight in our minds today. Now, Satan has strategies, and there are three primary strategies that he used to cause you and I as leaders to make mistakes. Satan offers, strategy number one, Satan offers quick results for compromise. Secondly, Satan tempts leaders to satisfy legitimate needs in forbidden ways. And then thirdly, Satan wants believers and leaders to develop unhealthy soul ties and relationships. Mistakes made by leaders leave an effect or evidence in the family, in the business, in the organization, in the ministry, in the workplace, And that effect is known as a wake. A wake is a visible track of turbulence left by something moving through the water. Now, my wife and I, we just enjoy cruising. We thoroughly enjoy cruising. And there have been times I've gone back to the back of the ship and looked out at the back window, out of the back window, and there's a wake of water, a track of disturbed water. It's like a path. That's called a wake. And mistakes that leaders make leave a wake of distrust, a wake of doubt, suspicion, and hurt people. Now, I understand it because I pastored for 40-some years. I understand that mistakes are inevitable. In fact, I believe that mistakes are the down payment for growth. But as leaders, we have to minimize our mistakes. We can't make mistake after mistake after mistake and be successful. So in this series, it's going to be powerful. I'm going to deal with 4 areas of leadership mistakes. I'm going to deal with 4 primary areas where leaders make mistakes. Number 1, we're going to talk about pride. We're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about sex. And we're going to talk about a lack of balance. Now, I am convinced that these 4 areas, if we can get a handle, leader, on these 4 areas, I'm convinced that we won't have scandal, we won't have hurt people all over the place. These are the 4 areas where often leaders make mistakes. So today, in this lesson, we're going to talk about pride. And I believe that pride is a major root of all relationship failure. Relationships in the home, relationships at work, relationships in business, relationships in church, in ministry. Failure, more often than not, is connected to pride. So we're talking about pride from a leadership context. So what is pride? Pride is an inflated sense of self-admiration, self-confidence in our own knowledge, our own abilities, our own decisions, our own status in comparisons with others. Pride always lend itself and lead to comparing ourselves with others. And when we operate in pride, others' status, others' positions, others' abilities, others' knowledge is going to always be viewed in an inferior way. So why is pride dangerous in leadership? Why is it dangerous for leaders to operate in pride? Well, number 1, pride erodes connection, decision-making, trust, and productivity. Now think about the goal of great leadership. Leadership is about connections. It's about connecting to the people that you're engaged with. It's about influencing people. It's about teamwork. But pride, it destroys or erodes connections. Leadership is about establishing trust. You can't be an effective leader if people don't trust you. But pride erodes trust, and it hinders us from creating productivity. Secondly, pride fosters an environment. And when we talk about an environment, we're talking about the culture, the environment of the home. We're talking about the environment of the workplace. We're talking about the environment of the business. But pride fosters a culture or an environment of fear, insecurity, competition, and isolation. So what are some manifestations of pride? I want to look at a proof text from the Bible about a man named Diotrephes. In 3 John, the third epistle of John, verse 9, in the Passion Translation, I'll read just one verse. Listen carefully. I have already written you once about this. Now, the Apostle John is writing to the church about a leader in this particular church. So John says, I have already written you once about this, but Diotrephes, who loves to be in charge. Now notice this leader, John says, I'm writing to you about this leader. His name was Diotrephes. And John says he loves to be in charge and recognized as first among you. He does not acknowledge our authority. So we have the implication that the Apostle John apparently started the fellowship, started the local church, established leaders in the church, and those leaders began to operate in leadership capacity. But there was one leader named Diotrephes who loved to be in charge. He loved to be recognized, and he did not honor or respect the Apostle John's authority. There are two major manifestations of pride, and I want you to think about the home. I want you to think about work. I want you to think about what's happening in our country. Think about what's happening in government. There are two primary manifestations of pride. Number one, the love of status, and number two, arrogance. The love of status and arrogance. So let's define the love of status from a leadership context. The love of status is a leader's excessive attachment to their position, authority, or recognition. It manifests when a leader is more focused on maintaining power, maintaining admiration, and maintaining recognition rather than serving others. In other words, there is an ego motive to receive power, to operate in power, to receive admiration, and to appear superior rather than serving others, rather than serving the people. A love of status transforms the leader from the role of service and responsibility into one of ego and self-preservation. The love of status. Great leaders, great Christian leaders are not about status. It's about serving people. It's about helping people. It's about lifting up people. The second manifestation of pride is arrogance. Think about the home. Think about the disruption in the home. Think about the problems that we face in the workplace. Think about government. Think about our country and the state that we're in. Arrogance is an unwillingness to be checked. You don't have to think much about it. An unwillingness to be checked, an unwillingness to be oppose, and unwillingness to be questioned in any way, a disregard for the viewpoints of others, impatience in answering questions, and resentment when others oppose our will. Arrogance says that I know what's best. I do not need advice. I do not need second opinions. And the problem with arrogance is that when there's no accountability, when no one can check us, when no one can hold us accountable, we end up being led astray by distorted perceptions, grandiose delusions, poor judgment, and faulty judgment. And the interesting thing about it, leader, is that all of us have blind spots. And all of us need others around us who could check us. You know, I pastored a large church for a lot of years, and I had a lot of authority. But I didn't have unchecked authority. I had a board of directors who established my salary. I couldn't go in and just write what I wanted. I couldn't just write big checks and send them anywhere I wanted them to go. Because having accountability is so very important. And leader, because we all have blind spots. And like I say, we make mistakes. Mistakes are the down payment of growth. So when we have others around us who can in some case say, I disagree, then it keeps us in a safe place. We don't get led off into delusions and all these different things. When we don't have people around us, we don't have those checkpoints, we don't have those boundaries, and every leader needs boundaries. So what is the solution? What is the solution to pride? Pride in leadership becomes dangerous when it crosses over from confidence to arrogance. Pride discourages teamwork. Confidence must be balanced with humility. And in my new book, The Big Pivot, I talk about how humility will balance us as it relates to pride. So let's take a look at what humility is. Number one, humility is recognizing power and influence are stewardship gifts. In other words, what are you saying, Mike? I'm saying that the power that we have in every arena is a stewardship gift because all authority resides in God. And all of us are alone or allowed to have power and influence. And since God is the ultimate authority, then any power that we have or any influence that we have is a stewardship gift. In other words, we must lead understanding that God is the ultimate authority, and that's humility. But secondly, humility is focusing on God's purpose, God's plans, and God's directives. And when you converse this with pride, pride is focusing on my purpose, my plan, what I want to do as a leader, but humility is focusing on God's purpose, God's plan, and God's directive. Thirdly, humility is focusing on serving others, not just self. Focusing on serving others, and not just self. Too many eyes in our conversation is symptomatic of pride. I thought of this. I negotiated the deal. I made things work. Too many eyes in our conversation is a manifestation of pride. Number 4, humility is knowing the difference between needing people and loving people. And God taught me that years ago. It's one thing to need people because we cannot be successful without people. But there is a difference in needing people and loving them. When I only need them, then I can get rid of them anytime I want to, regardless of the circumstances. But when I love people, then I take in consideration their needs, their desires, their ambitions, their goals. Number 5, humility is remaining open to learning. When you're a humble leader, you want to learn, and then sometimes you want to learn from those that are subordinates. Those that surround you, those that help you, you can learn from those individuals if you're a humble leader. And then finally, humility is respecting the gifts, talents, authority, and the abilities of others. Over the years, I realized that even though God had called me to the assignment, I needed people. I needed a team. I needed a staff. I needed volunteers. I needed people to help me to accomplish the goal, accomplish the project, accomplish the dream. But really, to be a humble leader is not just to have people around us, but also to respect their gifts and their talents and their abilities and their insight and their wisdom and their opinions. So the question remains, are you a humble leader, or you're a leader that's governed by pride? In this lesson, we talked about the danger of pride from a leadership context. And I'll talk with you in just a moment. I wrote the big pivot, shifting your leadership focus from outward success to inward growth, because character matters. It is a character book. So many leaders focus on the big reputation, they focus on how they start, they focus on big talk. But if you don't have inward character, the things that you achieve and the things that you work so hard for won't be lasting. The Spirit of the Lord said this to me, that the next move of God will be in the area of character. Not just achievement, not just reaching the top of the ladder, but character, who you are in your private space. And that's what this book is about. It's about who you are in your private world, because if your private world is not right, it will eventually spill over in your public spaces. It's pivoting from big reputation to character, pivot from big start to discipline, pivot from big shot to humility, pivot from big wimp to courage, and pivot from big talk to competence. So you want to get a copy of the Big Pivot. I just finished talking about the danger of pride. Pride is the root of all relationship failure. But I also talk about pride in my book, The Big Pivot. It's out and available today. Chapter 10, I talk about transitioning from a big shot to humility. Are you a big shot or are you an humble leader? Now, information in and of itself will do you no good if you don't put any actions to it. So every leader needs a team, and you need someone that you can go to and ask them, do you see signs of pride in my life? You can get The Big Pivot on hardback, ebook, and audiobook. Visit MikeMoore.com to get your copy. And remember, the Word of God is the answer.
Thank you for watching Answers That Work with Mike Moore.